Hello children, how are you all? I hope everyone are safe and sound staying at home. In this video, class 6 English literature, before we start a new lesson, let us see few pictures. What is this? It's a train. Do you like traveling by a train? Well, I love to travel by a train, especially sitting beside the window and seeing outside the view. It will be very nice looking at those trees and fields when traveling by the train. And here we see a boy looking at the train that is passing by, and this is goods train. This will be closed all around with no windows, only one single door. This carries goods from one place to another place. Now why am I showing all these trains to you? Well, in this video, we are reading the lesson The Great Train Journey by Ruskin Bond. First, let us know about the author. This is the picture of Ruskin Bond. Ruskin Bond was born on 19th May 1934, is an Indian author of British descent. He lives with his adopted family in Landore, Mussoorie, India. The Indian Council for Child Education has recognized his role in the growth of children's literature in India. He has written many short stories, essays, novels, and books for children. The Room on the Roof was his first novel, written when he was 17. He was awarded the Sahitya Academy Award in 1992 for Our Trees Still Grow in Dehra, his novel in English. He was awarded the Padma Shri in 1999 and Padma Bhushan in 2014. Let us know few words before we read the lesson. Concealed, hidden or covered up. Railway siding, a short stretch of track for storing trains or to allow trains to pass each other. Shabby, scruffy, old or worn away. Stationary, not moving. Thrust, force used to push. Musty, unclean smell. Glamour, attractive. Fascinated, strongly attracted or interested. Shrieking, making high pitch, sharp, piercing cry or sound. Panting, breathing heavily. Gloom, partial darkness. Fierce, violent energy. Perseverance, achieve something despite difficulties. Shudder, trembling with fear. Gigantic, huge or enormous. Clattering, make a rattling sound. Swaying, move backward or forward or sideways. Crouching, to bend your knees and lower yourself so that you are close to the ground and leaning forward slightly. Let us read the lesson. Suraj waved to passing trains and kept waving until only the spiraling smoke remained. He liked waving to trains. He wondered about the people in them and about where they were going and what it would be like there. And when the train had passed, leaving behind only a hot, empty track, Suraj was lonely. So here we see that Suraj, a boy, he was waving to the passing trains and until the spiraling smoke remained. He liked to wave and he wondered about the people in them. He wondered how it would be like traveling by a train where these people were going by the train. So he was he wanted to know about all these things. He was somewhat lonely now. His hands in his pockets, he wandered along the railway track, kicking at loose pebbles inside and sending them down the banking. Soon there were other tracks, a railway siding, and stationary goods train. Suraj walked the length of the goods train. The carriage doors were closed, and as there were windows, he couldn't see inside. He looked around to see if he was observed, and then, satisfied that he was alone, began trying the doors. He was almost at the end of the train when a carriage door gave way to his thrust. So there, as he was walking beside the railway tracks, he saw a goods train. He went close to the goods train. The goods train was closed all over. It doesn't have any windows. So he wanted to know what is there inside the carriage doors. So he wanted to open the doors. First he made sure that no one is observing him, and he was trying to open the doors. And as he was trying each carriage, at last he has came to the end of the train, and one door was open. It was dark inside the carriage. Suraj stood outside in the bright sunlight, peering into the darkness. Trying to recognize bulky, shapeless objects, he stepped into the carriage and felt around. The objects were crates, and through the cross section of woodwork he felt straw. He opened the door, and the sun streamed into the compartment, driving out the musty darkness. So he went inside and he opened the door, and as the sunlight came inside, the musty darkness has gone away, and Suraj was sitting in that compartment. Suraj sat down on the packing case, his chin cupped in his hands. The school was closed for summer holidays, and he had been wandering about all day and still did not know what to do with himself. So Suraj was having summer holidays. He was wandering about all day, and he was he doesn't know what to do with himself. The carriage was bare of any sort of glamour. Passing trains fascinated him. Moving trains, crowded trains, shrieking, panting trains, all fascinated him, but this smelly, dark compartment filled him only with gloom and more loneliness. He did not really look gloomy and lonely. He looked fierce at times. When he glared out at people from under his dark eyebrows, but otherwise he usually wore a contented look, and no one could guess just how deep his thoughts were. See, now here this boy was feeling very lonely. He did not know what to do, and he was having summer holidays. He came outside, and he was walking beside the railway tracks. He saw a goods train. At last he opened one goods train door was open, so he went inside the goods train, and he sat beside the crates, and he was looking outside at the trains that are passing by. So here now his thoughts, we don't know what his thoughts were, what he is thinking. Perhaps if he had company, some fun could be had in the carriage. If there'd been a friend with him, someone like Ranjit. So this boy is thinking about a friend. If a friend was with him, it could be fun. He looked at the crates. He was always curious about things that were bolted or nailed down or in some way concealed from him. Things like parcels and locked rooms and carriage doors and crates. He went from one crate to another, and soon his perseverance was rewarded. The cover of one hadn't been properly nailed down. Suraj got his fingers under the edge and raised up the lid. Absorbed in this operation, he did not notice the slight shudder that passed through the train. He plunged his hand into the straw and pulled out an apple. So one crate was he was able to open, and he put his hand inside, and he plunged out. He pulled out one apple from the crate. So there were apples in those crates. So it was dark ruby red. It was dark ruby red apple, and it lay in the dusty palm of Suraj's hand like some gigantic precious stone, smooth and round and glowing in the sunlight. Suraj looked up out of the doorway and through and thought he saw a tree walking past the train. So as he was looking at the apple, it was like a precious stone in his hands, and suddenly he saw that a tree was walking past the train. He dropped the apple and stayed. There was another tree and another, all walking past the door with increasing rapidity. Suraj stepped forward but lost his balance and fell on his hands and knees. The floor beneath him was vibrating. The wheels were clattering on the rails and the carriage was swaying. The trees were running now, swooping past the trains, and telegraph poles joined them in the crazy race. Crouching on his hands and knees, Suraj stared out of the open door and realized that the train was moving fast, moving away from his home and puffing into the unknown. He crept cautiously to the door and looked out. The ground seemed to rush away from the wheel. He couldn't jump. Was there, he wondered, any way of stopping the train? He looked around the compartment again. Only crates of apples. He would not starve. That was one consolation. He picked up the apple he had dropped, pulled a crate near to the doorway, sat down, took a bite from the apple, and stayed out of the open door. So here we see that Suraj, as he saw that trees were moving with rapidity and telegraph poles, and he observed that actually the train that he was in, the goods train, was moving, and he couldn't jump outside the train because it was moving very fast. If he jumped outside, he could get hurt. So he was a little bit afraid, I think, over here, and he was going away from home, and he was consoled but with one thing, that there were apples in those in that carriage, and he wouldn't starve. So that consolation was there. So he dragged one crate to the near the door, and he sat on that, and he picked up the apple that he dropped, and he was eating that apple. He picked up that apple that he dropped, and he had a bite of that apple and stayed out of the open door. Okay children, I'll stop here in this video. Next we'll continue in the next video. I want all of you to read the lesson and understand. Read the lesson till here and understand the story first. It is very funny, and it is if you imagine the boy, it will be very easy for you to understand. As you read, you just imagine the scene in front of your eyes, and you can understand very clearly. Okay, I want all of you to read the lesson and understand. Thank you children.